Transcripts and recordings of the podcast may not be used for any purpose without the direct written permission of the podcast owner. Welcome to LITE It Up, a podcast about resilient women balancing motherhood, their careers, personal lives, and all of the challenges that come along with being a superwoman. Each week, you'll be motivated to take action to lead, inspire, transform, and empower. Now, here's your host, Dr. Aginah Mashira. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of LITE It Up. I am your host, Dr. Aginah Mashira. I am so excited to be with you this week. I hope your week is off to a great start. I know mine certainly is. I am rejuvenated and refreshed and still in relaxation mode as I have just returned from a 1 week long solo vacation. It was impromptu. You guys know that I am a planner, but this particular trip was not thoroughly planned. Or pre-planned, I should say. And I had to actually psych myself up to pull the trigger, but I'm so glad that I did. And so I want to use this week to just kind of share with you my experience because, of course, now that I am back in the States and I've posted, I didn't really post that much when I was away because I don't typically post on social media when I am traveling. But a couple of days I posted like a few stories and I finally shared a reel kind of highlighting my vacation. You can probably tell that I have a tan, so I don't have on any makeup today, but I did get a nice little tan. So I, of course, appreciate that. But of course, all I've been hearing from folks now that I'm back, or even for the very select and close individuals in my life who knew that I was going to be traveling, people were saying, oh my God, you're going to go on a trip by yourself and you're going out of the country by yourself. I can't believe you're going to do that. This is my second trip, my second solo trip out of the country. And not that I am an expert by any figment of the imagination, but I have learned a little bit from the two international solo trips that I've done so far. And I just want to kind of encourage those of you who may be considering taking a much needed getaway and who have wanted to travel out of the country. Just want to share a few tips with you all that may hopefully encourage you or persuade you to take on that adventure and release the fear of traveling alone. So here's my story. I shared with you guys on the very first episode of this new season about everything that I've done in 2022, shared the exciting news about starting a new position, which I actually officially start tomorrow on Wednesday of this week. So before I started this new job, made an agreement that I needed to take a vacation because I was long overdue. I had not been on a vacation since December 2022, as far as what I consider to be a real vacation. And I'd taken like a mini weekend getaway in April of 2022, but everything else was just centered around my children and trips for them with moving them to school. And I was supposed to take a trip in August of last year for my birthday after I had dropped off Aaliyah and Kamal in college, but I didn't. I ended up going to Michigan for the weekend of my birthday. So that wasn't really my idea of a birthday trip, vacation. Fast forward, I wanted to go someplace that was warm because you know how the weather is in Chicago. It's always freezing in January and February. And but I wanted to go someplace where I would feel comfortable traveling solo. I also didn't have a whole lot of time to try to coordinate or plan with any of my friends or family who could possibly go because this was more of an impromptu vacation. I had signed my offer letter for the position that I'm transitioning into, and everything just started moving full steam ahead. So I didn't really have time to wait on other people. I mean, I had brought up the idea to a couple of my friends, shared with them that I was considering taking a trip, but the dates didn't work out for them. So I'm the type of person, when I'm ready to do something, I'm ready to do it. I don't have a whole lot of time to wait on other people to, decide on what they want to do or anything like that. So I pulled the trigger. I literally, I booked my airline ticket using points. I had already had that out of the way. But in terms of where I was going to stay, I was kind of going back and forth, couldn't make a decision about where I wanted to stay because I kind of get lost in the weeds of reading reviews. And the hotel accommodations are important to me. So there were some specific things that I was looking for this trip. I knew that I really didn't need to kind of venture out and travel beyond the resort because all I really wanted to do was be at an all-inclusive property where it was a beachfront resort, because I just wanted to lay out on the beach, read my book, relax, and not have anybody bother me, to be perfectly honest with you. And that's exactly what I did. So I booked or made a final selection on the resort that I was going to stay on a Friday, and my reservations were for 2 days later on a Sunday. So that's how last minute this vacation was for me, considering how far in advance I typically plan anything that I do. So I made the arrangements for my airport transfer, so I didn't have to worry about, renting a car or how to get to the resort from the airport. That was all taken care of round trip. So that was great. And things just kind of worked out. I didn't have to worry about anything. And I just relaxed. And I would suggest for anyone who has even considered taking a solo vacation, it's something that you should do once, at least once in your life. This was on my bucket list, had been on my bucket list years ago. And for my 44th birthday, that was my very first solo trip. And I even booked a photo shoot for that particular trip. That was to Cabo. And even then, people were very surprised that I was taking a trip by myself. But here's the thing. I mean, sure, people are going to be surprised and ask you if you're afraid to go alone or say things like, girl, I could never do that. That's not my story. I don't want to live a life of regret. I don't want to live a life waiting on other people before I can experience certain things in my life because, quite honestly, life is short. And if we're continuously waiting on other people before we do something that we're interested in doing, we may be waiting forever. There's our other, issue of not maybe having a partner or significant other or family or friends who will go on a trip with you. It's okay to go alone. I will tell you that going on a solo trip doesn't mean that you're going to be lonely. It doesn't mean that the trip is going to be boring. I think it's a really great opportunity to kind of figure out the things that you like and to enjoy yourself. Like, I took myself out to dinner and was very comfortable with sitting at that table, having dinner or even breakfast by myself. Even when I was on the resort or when I was picked up from the airport, the driver was like, "It's just you?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's just me." Or, "Yes, I want a table for one." Like, it's okay. So you will probably get stares from people, or you'll hear even strangers say, "Oh my God, I can't believe, you're taking a trip by yourself." Trust me, it's okay. It really, really is. My very first trip, I met this really nice lady who was sitting with me on the plane, and she talked about how she waited until her children were grown and she was divorced before she traveled by herself. And she wished that she had not waited so long to do that. But she had also met a group of other single Black women who were traveling on some trips that she ended up connecting with and befriending. And now they take trips together all the time. My recommendation to you is, again, don't let fear deter your trip. Be prepared for the stares or a million and one questions that strangers and or your family or friends will have about your decision to take a solo trip. But there are some key tips that I would share with you if you are considering taking a solo trip. So the first, if you're going out of the country, to the extent possible, try to learn the language. That was helpful for me. Now, there are certain places so far that I've only felt comfortable traveling solo. There are certain destinations that, just due to various issues like sex trafficking and other issues, that I am not very likely going to go on a trip alone. So I will say, make sure that you're staying, like for your very first trip, stay at an all-inclusive resort where you'll have whatever you need at your disposal. Because then you'll, have the choice of whether or not you want to leave the resort or stay on the resort, So for the first trip, I would definitely recommend staying at an all-inclusive resort so you don't have to worry about traveling outside of the resort if you don't want to. To that end, don't compromise your safety to prove a point or to save money. Okay. So I would say that if it means that you're going to be spending more money to stay at an all-inclusive resort, do that. If it means that you have to spend more money to book a transportation service, to get from the airport to your resort, do that. The other piece is, if you've decided that you're going to go on some excursions or things of that nature, I would certainly recommend that you book your excursions through the resort where you're staying, because at least that way they can recommend the companies. They have a relationship with the companies where you would be booking your excursions. So I wouldn't just randomly select some tour company or, company that does excursions. Definitely book through the hotel. And that will be a little bit more costly, but it's another way of safeguarding yourself in terms of your safety. And the other piece is if you're going to be out and about, sightseeing, touring, or what have you, try to blend in as much as possible, even if you're going to, I would say, a country such as an Islamic country, for example. Make sure you cover your head because you want to make sure that you're blending in and, of course, being respectful of the cultural norms in whatever country that you're traveling in. And of course, you want to make sure that your friends and family are aware of your location, your whereabouts. So like with my family, we use Life 360, for example, or just the other various mobile apps, depending on, if you're an iPhone user, what have you, you have Find My Friends, you could do that. But I always make sure that I'm communicating with my family, checking in so that they know that I'm okay. They know where I'm located. So that is definitely something that I recommend. So just because you're going on a solo trip doesn't mean that you completely take yourself off the grid and you're not communicating with family or friends or anything of that nature. So make sure you do that. Okay. The other recommendation that I have for you is to pick a country that's always been on your bucket list, whatever that may be. That will probably decrease your anxiety or fear about taking your first solo trip. And then I want to recommend book like an experience. Now you can book experiences through Airbnb. So it's more than just booking a place to stay, but you can book a photographer. You can book any type of activity, even a cooking class. You can book those types of experiences through Airbnb. You can also, of course, book that through the resort. When I did my photo shoot when I was in Cabo, I used a photographer at the resort. I actually did 2 photo shoots. One of my friends who had visited Cabo for her birthday gave me her photographer, the photographer that she used, gave me their contact information, and I did a photo shoot. So at least I had a point of reference, and I didn't select some random individual. But all in all, great experience. It helped me to get over my fear of traveling by myself. And it felt good to be able to say that I took a solo trip. Again, something that just has been on my bucket list to do and something that I've become more and more comfortable with doing. On this particular trip, I did not take any excursions because that wasn't what this trip was about. This trip was purely designed for me to be able to get some rest, get some sun, to be able to catch up on my reading. So I finally, I'm almost ashamed to say it, but I finally finished the book by Tabitha Brown. I don't know why it took me so long to finish. And then I just started to read, why can't I think of her name right now? Sarah Jakes, Woman Evolved. Just started reading that. So I told you guys I was trying to read 52 books this year. I'm a little behind already. However, it was just really great to carve out that time that I needed to be able to do some things that I have been putting off because life is just always so busy. The other thing that I'm proud to say, you all know I'm a workaholic. So even when I take vacations, oftentimes I am checking work email, even though I have the out of the office auto response on my emails and directing people to reach out to my assistant director. Well, usually I'm on emails a couple of times throughout my trips. I don't know why, but this time I only I was on email or a work-related call for a total of 2 hours out of the 5, 6 days that I was away. That is major for me, absolutely major. Um, I did on certain instances and certain calls set those boundaries to say, okay, I'm going to take this call, but I'm only giving you this amount of time, and we'll talk about that when I get back, when I officially start my position. So I'm proud of myself. For me, it takes baby steps. I can't just cut certain things off immediately, but I am proud of myself because I made an effort this time around. But what I learned about my time away is that I can't prolong the time that I take vacations anymore because it was long overdue. And every now and then we need those little getaways to kind of recharge and rejuvenate ourselves so that we can continue the work that we have to do. I've had my time for resting. This is my last day before I get back to the swing of things with work and moving full speed ahead. But I am rejuvenated. I've got my little suntan, and so I'm ready to go and get moving. And hope that you are ready to continue to rock with me for the next several weeks for this season 6 of LITE It Up podcast. I have some really great guests that are lined up for this season. And so I'm going to continue to bring you quality guests each and every week as much as I can. And every now and then you'll get one of these solo chats like you're getting today. So that's been 2 solo chats so far, and where I'm starting to feel more and more comfortable with producing these solo video podcasts. So it's okay. But I hope that you all took some of the tips for my female listeners. You know, again, if you are afraid to take a solo trip, don't be. Start someplace close. Doesn't have to be out of the country. It could be a weekend getaway at a spa resort, or check into a hotel and do a staycation. Baby steps, baby steps. But at the end of the day, try to remove the fear of traveling alone. Try to reduce the excuses that are made as far as waiting on others to take a trip, and just do it. This is the year of making change and taking care of yourself and doing those things that you've only wished that you could have done before. So there's no time like the present. I hope that you are able to take some of those tips that I've shared and implement and utilize them for your upcoming solo vacation. Oh, and one thing that I forgot to mention is to make sure you do your research. And that's so important. Wherever it is that you're going to travel, please do your research and plan accordingly to make sure that you have the best possible solo vacation experience possible. I hope that you enjoyed these quick tips and pointers that I've made available to you. Look forward to hearing where your first solo vacation is going to be. So feel free to leave some comments and share with me where you're going to go to. Would love to hear some of your travel ideas. Who knows, maybe you guys may have some destinations that I can add to my bucket list as well. So thank you so much for tuning in with me for this week's episode of Light It Up. As always, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you sharing the podcast with others and making recommendations on potential guests for the podcast. So make sure you tune in next week to see what interesting guest I may have on Light It Up podcast. Until next time, continue to light it up and shine bright like a diamond. Thanks for joining me this week on Light It Up. Make sure you visit my website at www.lightituppodcast.com or www.aginahmuhammad.com. You can also find me on social media using the handle @LITEITUpPodcast. If you like what you've heard, please be sure to hit the subscribe button so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, I'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or you can simply tell a friend about the show. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a new episode. Until next time, light it up and shine bright like a diamond.